Good evening. It's Tuesday, the 5th of May at 6 o'clock here in the UK, and we are all here in the UK. And we're here to talk about time management. And I've started 4 minutes late, so that's not a good start. But there we go. We're hoping that we were chatting beforehand. So we're hoping that Sean Allen will join us. But I know he still has a day job and is ideal candidate for talking about time management. Because we tend to, retired or otherwise, I say I'm semi-retired and then set this up a week later, and so it'll be interesting to see how our ladies here juggle their time, regardless of whether they have a day job or not. So I think if we go, let's go Sarah and then Jill and Jane. If you could introduce yourselves and say what you do that's either writing related or not writing related outside of your writing. And then we'll talk about how you fit writing in. So welcome. Good evening, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Banham. I run a business called For the Love of Books, and I offer creative writing services. I'm slightly hyped up on caffeine, which isn't a great
Oh, you had the last couple of times you had a stinking cold, so it's a slight improvement, I think.
I've been on decaf all day as well, so that kind of gives you an idea of how caffeine affects me. I write fiction and non-fiction. I ghostwrite and I coach reluctant writers, I suppose you'd call it. My time management, I think, side of things, I try to get involved in a lot of different aspects of creative writing and a lot of events too, whether I'm organising them or part of other people's like this. So time management for me is really about organisation and prioritisation, I think. As we go on more, I'm sure there'll be other things that I'll go, oh yes, and that, yes, and that, and I'll make a note as well. But those are the things that come to mind at the moment. And where prioritisation comes into it is generally the things that are so exciting, whether they bring in money or not, but they're so exciting, and I think, oh, I've just got to do it.
Right. Oh, how lovely.
That kind of makes my organisation part of my brain go, yeah, we'll fit that in, we'll make that work. So yeah, that's kind of where it comes from for me.
Oh, great. Jill, you have told us you're retired. So
Yes.
how do you find, what was your writing life up to retirement, and how has it differed? Have you found, because so many people retire and they say, I don't know how I ever managed with a day job to fit everything in, and still don't. Do you find you have more things going on when you're retired?
Yeah, I have. I mean, there is quite a lot going on, but not many things. Things you can't shuffle around, I suppose. So my husband still works 3 days a week, and actually those 3 days I can get a lot more in terms of writing because he's someone who likes to be out and about. So anytime we're doing things together, it's never really, unless it's pouring with rain, it's never in the house. And so I think I suppose that's why I did struggle when I was working. I worked for most of the time that our son was growing up. I worked full time and as an admin person in a school, and I did various kind of part time things when he was very little. But I always sort of thought, oh well, the next stage when he gets a bit older, I'll be able to do more writing. That was my thing, and then of course it doesn't work because I think I did more hours to compensate for not being needed to be at home as much. And then I thought, well, I'll have the school holidays, but then of course kids do activities and it's just no. And I admire totally anyone who's got this sussed, because I never got it sussed. And I did have the first contemporary book that I did. I had published by a small press in the Midlands in 2016 when I was still working, but by that point our son was really grown up, so there wasn't any call on my time except the actual work bit. So that was easier, but again, I still never managed to get another one out until I retired, which was in 2023. That's the first time I thought, okay, I'm going to try and do a book every 18 months at the outside, because I'm just not fast. I know some people can do like 2-3 books a year, but I can't I just know, because I'm a bit too pernickety. I think I can't leave it alone.
Yeah.
So,
And you write one book at a time, don't you?
oh,
From start
definitely one
to
at a
finish, and
time.
then
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm doing a series now, but I definitely can only do one at a time. I have ideas that I then just jot down somewhere, maybe for the next one or two, but I
Yeah.
don't do anything about them until I finish
Right.
it.
Right.
So
And
that's always.
Jane, welcome. Your first
Hello.
time here.
Yes.
I know you have as we've been chatting before this, I know you have a big stack of books in varying genres. I know
Yes.
you love sci-fi and that's your main
You said just in
domain.
case we need them, can you bring down
Yes,
the
do.
Oh,
brought down the
okay.
stack? Yeah, so I have a day job. It's very important to pay the bills. So
Mm.
I was a radio news reader for a long time, about 30 years, and then they got rid of my role, annoyingly. And then so I work for BBC Local now, putting clips up on BBC Sounds.
Okay.
So it's a journalist role, really, but it's now in the new media. Um, so I've had things where I've had a structure. This is the start of your shift. This is the end of the shift. This is what you do. And now I'm in a more of a, you need to do the 7, 8 hours a day. And, you know, if you do it at 5 in the morning, that's fine. If you do it 10 at night, that's fine, which is a blessing and a curse, really. But like Jill was saying, it's not something, the time management, it's not something I've ever cracked, but I
Right.
have tried a lot of things and I have figured out a few things that do work, a few things that don't work, and some of the pitfalls. But I've not cracked it, but
Right.
I've tried a lot of stuff.
And do you find that you're more of a morning, right, or do you work if you're allowed to, because you can work at 5 o'clock in the morning? Do you find you do some work and then do some writing and do some work, or you
Yeah,
just
so
work all the way?
I had a couple of years recently where, well, so when I was doing the news reading, I did the afternoon shift, and that was really good. That I would get up, pootle about a little bit, and then write for a couple of hours in the morning, and then just as I was getting to a good bit, it was time to leave and go to work. Always when you get into a good bit. And I actually noticed when I'm reading back, things like at the end of the chapter, I
Mm,
could tell that it was almost time to go to work because something that should have taken, several paragraphs, I've just finished off in a sentence. I'm
mm,
like, no, 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 that needs more emotional input. I'm reading back on it.
mm,
So that was really good. And people said, well, why don't you do the early? If you do the early, you've got all afternoon to write.
mhm.
But I'm sorry, getting up at 4 in the morning,
Right.
I'm reading the breakfast news, and then the first day you do it, like Monday, you're like, this is great. I've got all this time. You
Mm,
do the early shift, you come home, you do all this stuff. Tuesday, I'm absolutely exhausted. And then by Friday, and then the weekend's just completely wiped out.
yeah.
So I couldn't do it that way around, but I could do it the other way around. So I am mostly a morning writer, but not really a first thing in the morning writer. I
Right.
have done a thing where I've got up really early to make deadlines, to meet deadlines, and
Mm,
written, for 1 week, like from 5 in the morning kind of thing.
mm,
But that's not sustainable for me. There are people who do it. There are people who have like a 9 to 5, not like an 11 till 7, a 9 to 5,
right.
and they have to take the train into London. So they get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and they do their hour,
Mm,
and then they go to work, and then they work all day, and then they come back. And I don't know how they do it, quite frankly. And some of these people have got like children and other responsibilities, and total admiration for them. But yeah, morning. And I think that is the key, finding out when you're going to actually produce the goods.
mm,
Because have read of people that they go to work, they come back, they have dinner with their husband, and then, they'll start writing at like 8 in the evening. How on earth? My brain's just not functioning at that
right.
point.
Well, I know, I mean, I've learned even just in the few months of doing, since January, really properly, since doing Self Pub Fest, that a lot of writers are get up later, especially the weekends, if they don't have it all retired, they get up later and then write into that. I mean, Sarah's got a 11 o'clock at night session. She emailed me the other day, and I said, I'm not a David Wake. I'm not get up. I don't know what time he gets up, but I know he sort of doesn't. He's quite happy to join us at 12 o'clock, but nothing. When I was staggering the Monday mini fests, before I made them all 12 o'clock, he was struggling to get to the early ones. But he'd stay up late and write, whereas I'm the opposite. I would love to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night and get up at 5. And
Have you
then
ever read a book by Rachel Aaron called 2,000 to 10,000 Words a Day? I think it's called.
no.
So she did a system, it's quite interesting. So she had a traditional book contract and she had a deadline and she was writing this book and it was just a big slog. And, you know, she was worried about meeting this deadline and she's like, I've got to find a system for meeting this deadline. I've got to get these words written. So what she did was she kept a log. She tried to write all day and she kept a log of how many words she achieved at each time. And
Okay.
she thought she was a morning writer. And it turned out that actually she wasn't. When you looked at the figures, she wasn't at all. She was kind of like a middle of the day writer or whatever
Right.
it was.
Right.
So it's not necessarily what you think is the correct thing. Anyway, that book's like dead cheap. So I'd
Okay.
recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, I have any excuse to create a nerdy Excel spreadsheet. I have a nerdy Excel spreadsheet with the dates on it, days and dates on it, and then the balance of how it is, you know, the balance of that day, and then it just has a formula in it to tell me how many words I've done that day. But I have only recently, I've been saying I'm going to do this for a long time, and then of course things crop up, is to have the mornings. So for a while I've not been booking anything before 12 o'clock, so that I can have the morning. And I've been pretty good about it, other than this morning I had to go to the dentist. But I have been pretty good at saying, right, you're not going to do anything. I can look at my emails on my phone first thing, but then I'm not touching them until later. So my writing until 12, and then work until 5, and then eat and be in the same room as Tim, and then deal with emails in the evening, which I can do from my laptop, which is why they don't get done. Because
Does anyone here use the Scrivener software? No?
I have done in the
Oh,
past. Yeah, I have
yeah,
done.
so that will do it for you. You can set like a target date. So
Okay.
you set a target, so you say, I want a novel that's 80,000 words. I'm going to finish it on August the 1st.
Right.
And it will tell you how many words per day you need to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just bring up the dialogue box and it goes from like red when you've written nothing to green when you've hit your daily target. And it tells you how much you've written, how much you've got to go. And I find that really useful and really motivating. You know, the days where I've got into the green, and then the days where you
Yes,
have.
I bought Scrivener some time ago. Well, in fact, a client of mine bought it because he writes science fiction, and this is before I worked with Bloodhound, and then all my clients went. I ushered them to a friend of mine because it was just getting ridiculous, the amount of work I got from them, which was great. And he bought Scrivener for me because he uses Scrivener. He wanted me to use Scrivener, so I have it still. And I do plenty because I know what a really good tool it is. So it's on my sort of jobs list to get back on it and use it properly, because Word, I just have bits all over the place, and
Well, because
it's
you keep it in, that's kind of going a bit off topic really, but because you've got every chapter or every scene in a separate file and you can
yeah,
title them.
yeah,
So
move them
in my
around.
current work in progress, I've
Mm,
got like Ben at the theatre, Kirsty meets him in the cafe. And if I need to go back, what jacket was Ben wearing in the theatre? I know
right.
exactly where it is. I can go
Yeah,
through. You don't have to scroll through this massive
yeah,
document or have
yeah.
bits in. And well, you know, I sound like a
But the
promotion
thing
for
is
it, but it's quite cheap.
that's saving you time,
Yeah.
because you're not doing what I'm doing and going, and I have notes open and then names table open and birthdays open and so on and so forth, you know, various, because my one's complicated at the moment because I've got 60 characters, well, 70 characters. And so I've got beginnings of four or five novels so far, where I've written the first chapter of each, and then it's just a case of I just carry on going with those.
Well, I've got trouble keeping up with Ben and Kirsty, let alone 60 characters.
Yeah. Well, I've given them a who they are, what relation they are, when their birthdays are, how old they are, and so on and so forth, because there'll be different people, and who runs the post office and the cemetery and this, that, and the other. But yes, I think it's with all these things, it's thinking about not taking too long doing something that you just want to get on and do the writing. Sarah, when you've got somebody who comes to you and says, oh, I don't have time, I want to write a book, but I don't have the time. Have you had people come to you and say that?
I have. I'd say with those people, I'd probably split them into two categories. Those that actually don't want to write it at all, so I end up ghostwriting for them.
Right.
Or those who can't afford ghostwriting, so I explain how much better coaching is for them. So it's a lot cheaper, but they do it. I just coach them. Just going slightly back a little bit, I'm slightly more old school, I think, than you guys, and that's my tally sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when Morgen said about my 11 o'clock thing, that's part of my subscribers for my newsletter meeting, I suppose. And my ideal time for writing fiction, because I write non-fiction as well, which is more of a day thing, but for my body clock and how my brain works, writing fiction, I can do it any time, but I get the absolute most out of it from about 10 o'clock to about 3 in the morning. And that totally works for me. So much so I've, in less than 2 months, I've just written another novel, which was 105,000 words. So I was hyper-focused, mind you. So, I had a schedule.
When do you sleep? At 3 o'clock onwards?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 3 till like 7:15 or 8 o'clock or something.
And that's enough.
I might have a nap or meditate at lunchtime. So that's literally all I need. I generally in life need way more sleep than that, but I think as I'm getting older, my body's requiring less of it, so I'm using the time wisely.
No, I'd love to be able to sleep less, but I know what I'm like. If I have a late night, I then struggle not the following evening, but the evening after that, and it catches up with me. I need 9 hours, and you never get 9 hours. But there we go. So, Jill, do you set yourself deadline? You said about 18 months for writing a book.
Yeah, I mean, the next one, I realised I can probably do one in a year. This one, the one I'm doing now, I can do in a year, because part of it follows on from the last one. So I kind of knew where it was going, and I've got some of the same characters. So I think because I wasn't starting from scratch, it's sort of easier. So it was easier to do like the first draft in a few months, and then that gives me a lot of time to edit. And I suppose really because I set the deadline that it seemed a good idea to get it out by October, because then you've got the Christmas people wanting Christmas presents. So and because the previous one came out sort of late September-ish, I thought, well, I could just about do that in just over a year, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about, I think I'm somewhere in between where you're saying you're very old school and you, Sarah, and you write it all down and you've got this kind of program that adds up all the words. What I do is when I'm doing the first draft, at the end of the day, I try and do 1,000 words a day, but I know I've sort of got factored in that I'm not going to do 30,000 words a month, if you see what I mean. So because there are days when you can't do any for whatever reason, and I don't always manage it. So what I do is at the end of every day, I highlight the number of, in Word, I highlight the number of words I've done, and then it will give me the word count in the corner where it gives you, normally it gives you the whole word count of the whole manuscript. It just comes up with the bit you've highlighted, doesn't it, with the number of words, and then you can put that down. So it's sort of half electronic and half worked out.
Okay.
But I'm definitely, I'm sort of an owl rather than a lark. I can't work first thing in the morning. I don't normally start at about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I mean, I get up before that, but I sort of do any chores and stuff that doesn't need much brain before that.
My brain starts working until about 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or something. Yeah,
no,
I can look at emails and answer those, but when it comes to actually needing to use my brain, it just says, no, we'll do it later.
Yeah.
But things like, when I can make the washing machine work without using my brain, obviously, or whatever. So I might even go shopping or something, but yeah, not proper brain work.
Yeah. Jane, I was going to ask Jill about whether she aims for a certain word count each day or every writing stint. Jane's just put oh yes, the book link, thank you. Do you sort of aim for a certain amount of word count, or you say,
I
right,
have
I've got
done.
a couple of hours?
Yeah, I try to 1,000 words a day, but sometimes that's easier than others. If you're doing like quick fire dialogue, that can really flow quite quickly. But if you're trying to describe a fight scene and it's very complicated, it's just
Mm,
going to take you a long time to do that. So I think word count is a double-edged sword, really, because if you madly go for the word count, you're just doing it to bash out the words. Sometimes you can go back the next day and just realize you've written rubbish.
mm,
So you go see that as a target, but don't sort of go for that target to the exclusion of everything else, I think,
yeah.
because just sat for 2 hours. So 500 words of something decent is a lot better than 1,000 words of something that's a bit rubbish, I think.
There
So,
used there used to be something which I've done a few times called NaNoWriMo, which is
oh yeah,
National
I
Novel
do that.
Writing Month. And the idea for that is you write 50,000 words in a month. And they stressed they don't have to be good words.
no,
But by the end, if you win, you will have 50,000 words more than you had at the beginning of the month. And that worked for me. And I'd never planned on writing novels because I loved writing short stories, and so I never planned it. But because I didn't want to spend what I'd heard was a year writing one book, whereas somebody said, "Well, have a go at writing a novel, uh, albeit a 50,000 word novel, in a month." So I did, and did it a few
because
times.
the other side of that is, as you say, you can get so het up on making everything perfect that you actually achieve
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
Um,
Well, this
who's that
one,
famous Irish writer wrote the Dubliners? He would
uh,
like boast that he'd written, 100 words that day. And
James, not James Joyce, Dubliners.
I think so. Anyway,
Anyway,
yeah,
Shane Keeney.
it was
Um,
like a boast that he'd written like 100 words that day and he'd spent all
right.
day doing it. And a lot of readers, they're interested in the story. The fact that
Yeah.
you've described a tree in a beautiful way at the end
Mm,
of the day is probably not going to make them
yeah.
turn
No,
the page.
It depends on the genre, but yes, certainly old school Catherine Cookson type. Then
Yeah.
you'd have a lot more description.
Yeah, obviously, if you're
Uh,
writing the next
yeah.
great poem, then every word counts.
Jane, um, with because you've got so many books, and I know some are I can't remember the collaborations or you've written them to a certain world. I can't
Uh,
remember.
so, um, so like this one, it happens to be on the top. So that was a tie-in book. So it's based on a board game called Terraforming Mars,
Mm.
and I was paid a fee to write a book around the game.
Mm.
So, yeah, those had deadlines.
Yeah,
And the
like a
first
lot of
deadline I
fun.
met and the second deadline I kind of didn't. So
right. And do you find because you've got so many books with your name on the front, regardless of
mm,
whether they're your creations or
yeah.
for somebody else, how much marketing, the dreaded M word, um, because I've heard so many times, and it's the same for me, is that I don't have time to do marketing. Um, and we're still learning really what kind of marketing works. You don't want to go on social media and say, unless you've got a new book out, and say, I have this 5-year-old book, it's not selling very well, please go and buy it, is obviously not the way to go.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not your marketing guru. I think
No,
people I have found who are most successful are married to someone who does it all for them.
right.
That's who'd you get to edit it? Oh, I get my wife to edit it. So it's a partnership, and a lot of people don't have time to do both, and you're kind of rock and a hard place. You have to promote your book to sell it, but you have to write it first. And if you're not writing, you can't promote it. But when self-publishing first kind of became a big thing, there was a guy in a writing group I was on, and he didn't write a book for a year. He made a lot of money, but he spent the entire year learning Facebook ads, and he did those. And then after that year, I don't know what happened to him. Just not seeing his name around.
No.
And you just want like, they got so entrenched down this Facebook ad rabbit hole that didn't write any more books. So it's difficult. And if writing books is what you love, you don't want to be doing Facebook. And a lot of writers are, introverts. So, putting a load of videos on TikTok, probably not the thing that they want to do. It's kind of sad, really. But even if you get a traditional publishing deal, your publisher probably won't publicize for you particularly. I was at work, and one of the guys at work who'd published a cookery book through a traditional publisher, and I was going upstairs to the loo, and I was just following up the stairs, and he was on the phone to a friend or his wife or something, and he was complaining that he was having to pay for his own advertising for the book, which was published by the traditional publisher, bearing in mind that the publisher would get probably the lion's share of the royalties, and he would get whatever his deal was if he earned out his advance. So I think the best for me, it's kind of like you were talking about the writing time. Your writing time is in the morning until 12 o'clock. And then in the afternoon, I mean, you might have to do other things. You might have to like pick your kids up from school or go and do your part-time job or whatever it is. But at some other point where your writing brain is not engaged, then maybe that's the hour that you could do some advertising or post on social media or what have you. But as I say, I think the people who are most successful are the people where it's kind of like a partnership, sorry to say.
And I think also it's about readers getting to know who you are. So you have to have a presence, because I know of some authors who say, I'm not on social media, I'm never going to be on social media, and then complain that their books aren't selling very well. But you have to be there, you have to have your covers somewhere. Because also I've been friend requested by people, by writers on Facebook, and they're friend requesting me from their named profile or page. And I scroll down, and they might have 50 mutual friends, which used to mean something back in the day. But now I scroll down 20, 30 posts, and there's nothing about their writing, nothing. Even I wrote 5,000 words over the weekend or nothing, and it's all political or animals or something. And you think, yes, that's nice, but save that for your private profile. Have a private profile for all your interests.
And yet you also need to come across as a person, and it's quite important now with so much AI out there. If they see Morgen as a person and they get to know you as a person, then they're more likely to invest in your books because they've got that connection. And then for introverts, that's quite difficult.
Yes.
I was going to say one lesson that I learned about time management that I was taught by some American writers, and they said their big lesson was that they said they'd met a lot of writers who'd come through doing the courses, and they'd met people with talent, and yet those writers never went anywhere. And they said, if you want to make it, you have to make writing your priority. So whatever it is, if your writing time is 3 in the morning, or your writing time is 5 in the morning, or your writing time is 12 noon, that is the time that you do it, barring your child being rushed to hospital or whatever it is. So make it your priority, even if your target is a small number of words or a couple of pages or whatever it is, that you make it your priority. And then, obviously by the end of the year, you will have built up a body. You might have an entire novel, you could have 5 novels, you could have half a novel. But if you make it your priority, then it will happen.
Exactly. Well, the saying is that nothing sells your last book like your next one.
Yeah.
And if, as the gentleman you quoted, that he spent so much time, and I've been there with Amazon ads. I joined up to Brian Cohen, Brian with a Y, who's fantastic, American, and he has a school on Amazon, and he does Facebook and all sorts of other ones as well, and much more besides, talk about covers and everything. But he runs courses on Amazon ads, and you could spend the whole time, your whole week, looking at these, and especially because it needs refreshing. Things change and new books come out and your keywords aren't relevant anymore, and that's almost a full-time job. So when I come back from holiday, I need to factor in an hour a day to look at my stats and revamp my ads and so on. But there's an author called R.R. Hayward, who I only discovered last week through a friend of mine, who is RR, his initials, and then HAYWODD, who has bought the entire rights forever for my friend's book that he had already written, but this chap writes horror and it's zombie books. And so my friend has sold him for a smallish amount of money, three digits, to all rights forever. And I went, that doesn't sound like a great deal. However, it's got his name on it. It hasn't got R.R. Hayward's name on it. It's got my friend's name on it. And he's gone from trickle sales to 5 digits, low 5 digits, 1,000 and something each month since the book came out in November. And so he's earned £1,000 a month from his other books. He's not earning anything from that book because he sold it. So R.R. Hayward has the rights to it and the royalties from it, but it's selling all his other books. But his other books are horror books. So it's a bit like, kind of like James Patterson collaborating with all these other authors, where apparently James Patterson comes up with the idea, the other people write the books and then give it back to James Patterson. I don't know how true this is. Give it back to James Patterson. He then James Pattersons it, and then it's published as James Patterson with Michael Letwidge, Andrew Gross, and so on. But it means then that R.R. Hayward can produce more books they are in his world. So my friend read his first 7 books, they're all based on a day. So I think he's up to 30 something now. And I think it will just keep going. And so my friend read the first 7 to get a feel for his world, and then tailored the book he'd already written and was languishing in a folder, not doing anything, to then developed it to his world. And then was some tweaking thereafter, and R.R. Hayward bought it and published it as with my friend's name on it. So people then go, oh, I read this, I really like it. What else has he written? So R.R. Hayward doesn't have to write all these books each year because other people are writing for them under their own names, but he gets the royalties for the lump sum that he gave them for their book. So
more than one way to skin a cat.
There is, yes. I mean, I didn't think it sounded like a great idea at the time.
But thinking back to like the creators of Superman selling their rights to Superman and like never made a penny back after that. So going back to the make writing your priority, there was a story about back in the day before we had the word counts, people would write pages, and they're like, I need to write 3 pages a day. And there was a story about a writer that went to one of these courses, and she said Christmas morning her child came into the bedroom, young child, and said, Mum, can you write your pages now because we want to open the Christmas presents?
Aww.
It's so ingrained into the family that writing was her priority, and nothing happened until she'd written her pages, that Christmas did not happen.
Oh, bless.
She'd written those pages,
Oh, but I think
now the people who said make writing your priority are a lot
Yeah.
older and are now saying make health your priority.
Right.
Because a lot of their contemporaries are just getting ill, with old age, but also because they made writing their priority and they had a day job and they spent their entire life sitting at a desk.
Right.
So word of caution. So
Yeah.
make writing your priority, but make sure you have a life as well, which
Exactly.
is, only 24 hours in a day, right?
Yes. Well, it sounds like Jill has a good balance, that you have your 3 days off
Now,
when
yeah.
Mr.
I
Todd
don't
is
have any time off. I wouldn't say I have
working.
time off, but I suppose
No, I
really,
mean time off from your husband.
well, I think what it is though, it's a bit of a temptation just to concentratedly do it, like you're saying, but you don't think about your health or anything. Although in theory, I think, oh, I'll go out and do some exercise, go out for a walk. But there's this in my head thinking, yes, but I know that if I get a lot done today, then if Pete wants to go out on Thursday, I won't feel guilty if I do it now. So I end up being almost like a hermit for 3 days
Right.
sometimes. Not every week, but even if it's lovely and sunny, even if I just go out and water the plants, I might do that. But I just feel guilty if I leave my desk, which is not right, really. It's not really a balance.
No.
Or paranoia. I don't know what it is really, but it's not right. There's never really, you never really, well, I think some people obviously do think they get it right. I never think I get it completely right. I just try slightly different things, and it does work out nowadays. It does work out that I get something done in a reasonable length of time, but depending on the season, particularly, I do more. I suppose really what does work is doing the main sort of draft in the winter, early spring, and then the editing requires a different type of concentration somehow. You're not trying to actually think what's coming next. So it's not like something can throw you off completely. You can think, oh, I've got half an hour, I'll come and do some editing. And that works well. I mean, I think the only thing with doing 1,000 words a day and saying, oh, I'm going to stick to that, or 50,000 in a month, I don't think I'm able to do that, because if I do, say, 3 days where I manage to do 1,000 a day from the draft, I mean, then I don't know, and my characters don't know what comes next. I've kind of overtaken the idea, if you like. I've written too fast. There's not another idea coming along unless I wait a day or two until the characters maybe tell me what's coming next, or I tell them one or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't keep that creativity just constantly going.
No.
All the time. I mean, I think obviously everyone's different. Some people I'm sure can do that. But
I think you've got very realistic expectations, because you're working on one book at once, and you're aiming for one between 12 and 18 months, which I think is a very healthy and realistic. I think we can be thinking, oh, I'd love to, because I would like to, the series I'm looking at now, where I've got these potentially 60 books, I'm writing it so that each first chapter is a self-contained short story. So I'm writing the short story first, which then becomes the first chapter of each of the books. So I'm hoping for my next WI, which is unrealistic, is the 9th of July, my next WI talk, to not only have the book of short stories written, but also one of the novels. And that's
so how many are you doing a year? How many, if you're doing 60, how many are you thinking of doing a year?
Well, they're all going to be about 60,000 words long, so not incredibly long. And so I'd like to, realistically, I would love to get one a month done. So short story collection in May, and then first novel in June, and then have them ready. I've got loads of beta readers, thankfully, and my editor, and then probably, if I can, a book every other month thereafter.
And that includes editing?
Well, once I'm working on one, because as soon as I finished one, it will then go off to beta readers.
Like a chain kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Conveyor belt.
Ideally, but then having told you that you're very realistic with your 12 to 18 months, I know that my one a month, one every 2 months is possibly unrealistic. Okay. Sarah, how often do you, because you write fiction and non-fiction, what would you say is your output during a year? or is that how long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
How long has it been?
Actually, since lockdown, I've managed to publish one book a year,
Right.
and I really like doing that. I've been publishing since 2006, but it's been hit and miss, different years, and stuff happened. So yeah, so 2020, I graduated, and so it was graduation, book, and I wanted to continue that. I think I mentioned this to you last time I was on here. I'm starting a series, and there's about five, maybe six, but probably five books in that series. I'd written the first one, and it went off to beta readers. It was way too soon to send off, but I was too excited. It needs development. While that's been waiting for me to develop it, a story that came along in 2022, which I'd written various amount of notes for, is the book that I've just finished yesterday. So I'm leaving that to settle. That's going to go to beta readers.
Sure.
In the meantime, I'm proofreading a couple of non-fictions for a publisher. Then I can go back to that book one of the series again and develop that. But my idea of doing one a year, I absolutely can. I've got a huge amount on, mind you, but I absolutely can. But I've also got a short story that's going to be published in an anthology in late November. So I kind of feel like that could be my one this year.
Okay.
But what I was going to say to you is you sound very much like me with the, and forgive me for saying this, the overachieving attitude. Yeah. I think maybe you could do one of these panels for overachievers, because I'd be there.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, no, I think for me, if I aim high, I don't mind. I aim for 300 words a day, because that's my favourite statistics, and I have a podcast called 300 Words a Day, where if you write 300 words a day, it's 109,500 words a year. So I would love to get 2 books out every year, because I've done very little. I've moved 4 times. Mum died, aunt died, uncle, dementia, moved house. And so I've had so much going on since in the last 2 years that I've done pretty much no writing. So I'm throwing myself back in it. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be back in it. And I think I've realistically, I know there's a little voice in my head going, there's no way you can achieve all this. But the front half of me goes, you can do it. You can just, you're planning all of this. And I've gone from and I don't know, be interesting to see which of you are plotters and pantsers. And I'd love to know, Sarah, more about your ghostwriting, because obviously you've got to fit that in between. Whether I started as a complete pantser, and now I've sort of turned into a plantser, where I do some plotting. So with these, I have a paragraph for each character. I know how old they are, some visual characteristics, and something about them, the relationship to others, and so on. So I have a little bit, and I'm going to create probably just a 1-page plan for each book, and that will probably be enough. So then I'm still discovery writing. But I have found with previous books, works in progress, that if I don't plan something, I stop more often. So it's more time consuming being a pantser than I am at least having some form of plan. It doesn't hold me back so much. I mean, presumably with ghostwriting, Sarah, you're given a brief that you work to.
Actually, the last thing that I ghostwrote was, I think the last thing I ghostwrote was my parents' memoirs, which it took me about 15 years to actually complete it, not because I was dragging my feet, but because it's fitting it among everything else. Yeah. And it was only for the family, it wasn't for public consumption. Sure. And I finished it in November. But when I approach memoirs or life writing or whatever it is for a client, I approach them and say, okay, this is, they tell me what the brief is, they tell me what they want to focus on. And then I come back with a structure, which I kind of in my mind sort of image it as a spine. So you've got the spine and you've got bones coming off it, and those bones are the events, and you attach dates to those events and potentially photos, and then, you know, anecdotes and whatever. So that's kind of how it blossoms out. With my parents, I said, well, this is what I normally do with people. You know, we create this structure, this timeline. And they both said to me, oh, it doesn't matter, do what you want to do. Anyway, this is all the stories. So all these stories just came at me.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty intense.
You had an advantage where you knew a fair amount
Yeah.
of the information up front already.
I did, except for change so frequently.
Right.
Like they'd come up with an anecdote or a story they remembered from their childhood. And then when we tried to elaborate on that for, you know, let's ask questions about it and develop that a bit more. The next time we went and did it, it was different. Or those people weren't involved in that. What are you thinking? Well, it's on audio. This is what you said. Or it would be something completely different or at a different location. So, you know, so much of it was altered, but it wasn't about everything set in stone. It was their memories, so it was reliant on them remembering things, which it was a really fun story. It was a really fun project because I actually saw my parents as people rather than just mum and dad, and it was wonderful to do that. But when it comes to other clients, yeah, we try to keep a structure so that we know exactly what each session is going to be about. I'll write it and then bring it back, they review it and see what needs to be altered or developed. And yeah, we'll do it like that. So structure, I think, from a ghostwriting point of view, that's if it's non-fiction. If it's fiction, it's going to be slightly different anyway. But yeah, it would have to be structured in a way that we both understood, because if it just came at you at all angles, I wouldn't know the people anyway. I wouldn't know their backstory. So it would be such a mess. It would be I don't want to think about that.
And do you plan your novels, your fiction?
You know, each book has been different. Right. I would honestly say each book has been different. The last one that I finished the other day, I'd had notes written down. I didn't plan really tightly. I'd written the start. I'd written the first chapter. I'd written a couple of scenes somewhere in the middle, and then I had actually written the ending because there was a certain framing that I wanted to achieve. And so much of it was quite linear. And then when I realised there were certain characters I wanted to bring in, they came along really naturally, even their names really naturally. So that was wonderful. And then that was when the first draft was written. That was in April. And then when I did draft 2, which was developing it, that was at that point that I thought, yeah, we need to really work out why this is happening or why they made that decision and where that's going. So that was much, like I always said, the first draft is telling yourself and the second draft is, you know, telling everyone else, developing it more. So that was pretty cool. And then the third draft was trimming it to a point where actually I wasn't repeating loads and loads and loads all the time, because when you're trying to develop everything, you say the same thing like 3 different ways, don't you? But it means the same thing. So just trimming it back.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think each book of my novels, that is, each book has been one of my books years ago. I'd written the end first and kind of worked my way back to the beginning. Okay. So yeah, I think they're all different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually done 2 books the same way, to be fair.
And do you get faster? Do you get quicker as you the more you write? You think? Practice.
In what way do you mean that?
Well, that you say from start to finish, your process would be quicker from early books. Because I'm going to ask Jane the same question.
Yeah, I would say so. This last one is probably the longest book I've written in the quickest amount of time ever, and I've been writing 40 years. So that was like hyper focus. Right. I'd written a book, a novella actually, back in like 2010 10, maybe 9, 8.
Mm.
Was a young adult book, and I'd written that in 4 months, and that was pretty quick back then for me. That was the other ones had been like 18 months.
Right.
So yeah, they've taken different times. But I think if I'm absolutely focused on it and I'm enjoying being with the characters, I'm enjoying living their story with them, I don't want to go to bed. I want to carry on doing this. It's only when I start thinking I'm not seeing straight or I need to eat or something like that, I think, yeah, it's time to stop now. Let's go to bed. Let's get some rest. And then I'll come back to it. Yeah.
Because your brain will still be working, even if you're not physically typing.
And I'll probably dream about it too and wake up and think, okay, that's something I didn't consider. Let's go back and look at that bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
And kind of live it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Jane, have you found that do you plot, do you pant, have you things
So,
changed?
yeah, when I was 18, I wrote a novel. Well, I didn't finish writing a novel and I didn't plan it. And I got to a certain stage and realised the whole thing was going nowhere and scrapped the lot.
Right.
And then I was due to go to university, so I just like threw it away and went off to university. And that was a kind of a big horror lesson, really, that I'd spent a long time writing this story I was very excited about. And it was mostly the villain and the good guy getting together and having a bit of a banter, and I quite enjoyed writing all that. And it was, and it was, you
Well,
know, that's the big bit in the book, isn't it? When they get together and but it was all that,
absolutely, yes.
but there was no plot progression, so that really scared me. And then for ever since, I've always plotted stuff out.
Right.
And there is a danger of that because if you know where it's going, then very often the reader can also know where it's going. So I do plot it out, but I am prepared to rethink it as I go and incorporate new ideas. And those are the exciting things. Those are I could do this with this story or this character, and then it will go off over there.
Yeah.
And it will basically follow my path, but it might wander a little bit. But for the tie-in books that I had to do for the publisher, they wanted a plan which had to be okayed by the rights holder,
Right.
and they were pages. And it was also stipulated you must stick to this plan because it's been signed off by the rights holder. And if you go off and you have your own head and you do something else, then they're going to reject it. Whereas for traditional publishing, I've heard writers say that they write, something that's not a tie-in, that they'll write the plan and the publisher will say, yes, we'll give you an advance for that or for 2 books or whatever it is. And then that's just a thing to get the contract. And then they go off and they write what they want and they forget the plan. I don't know if they'd let you do that these days, but they certainly would let you do that in the 80s. So yeah, I always plot it out now. Yeah, I always plot it out now, and then I've just got the freedom to change it because if you're just writing to a format, then it can get a bit stale. And they always say your 4th idea is the best one, don't they? So they say, come up with a story, and you come up with a story, and you find out that it was Romeo and Juliet is done already, and then by the time you think about it and come at different angles, then you get your original idea. But then also there's the concept that if you write into the dark, you just start off, it was a cold and stormy night and see where it takes you.
Yeah.
You're accessing something primal that is the result of all the reading that you've done and the plot, and then you can, as you're discovering it, the reader's discovering it as well.
Sure.
So there are various schools of thought, but I do plan.
I've judged a couple of short story competitions recently and went to both. One was in Slough, one was in Lutterworth in Leicestershire. And I was saying to them that if you're writing to a theme, then write down as many ideas to that theme as you possibly can. And either, pick one that really resonates with you, but ideally some way down the list so that not everybody, because say A Walk at Midnight, one of the it wasn't a recent one but an H.E. Bates one, and some of them were literally just a couple going for a walk at midnight and nothing really happened. And there was one story that didn't have a walk, wasn't set at midnight, And so they should fit because it's, for me as a judge, it's partially, it's a writing competition, so the writing should be good, but equally we say, some writers say that Dan Brown and J.K. Rowling aren't particularly good writers, but they tell a good story. And so 99% of readers just want to be entertained. They want a good story. Yes, they appreciate it if the writing's good. But with a competition, obviously the writing's got to be good. But it's for me, it's how I feel by the end of it. And if it's something a little different, if it's something that half a dozen people have written the same kind of thing, but someone else has thought outside the cliched box and come up with a really unusual idea, then that often grabs my attention. So Jill, are you a plotter or a pantser? And have you found things of maybe your time structure has changed, thinking, well, that took longer than I planned, or I could do it a different way. Are those Christmas cards? Those aren't Christmas cards, birthday cards up on your...
Oh, sorry. I thought I'd taken those down. There were some up on. They're not mine. They're Pete's. But I hadn't remembered. I'd left them up on the string.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I was trying to tidy everything out.
I think that was quite charming. I imagined them to be Christmas cards in May, but you didn't want to take down
the string. The string stays up all year, so other things like Mother's Day and Father's Day and birthdays can go up there as well.
Lovely.
Because we can't get very many on the mantelpiece.
No.
So,
I think that's lovely. I think that's lovely.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I mean, I do. When I start off, I know generally, because the kind of stories I write, they tend to be about something that's happened a long while ago, impacting something on the present, whether it's a cold case and then things going on in the present or whatever. But so I tend to want to know, to start with, vaguely the sort of historical side of it, just an incident or something, and then I want to know the current thing that happens that sets it all off, if you like. So like the book I wrote last, there was this couple's friend disappeared in the present day, but also that kind of was relevant to what happened a very, very long time ago. And so I tend to know that, and I know that the whatever challenge is going to create the character arc, I know that bit. So I have this kind of starting point, and then everything else, I don't know how I'm going to get from A to B, really. I just know that that's how it starts, and then I start writing it, and then the characters, to some extent, lead it a bit themselves, because I suppose because I know them quite well now, they just do their own thing, really. So I think if I tried to work out the end in advance, it would go wrong, because they'd try and lead it in another direction anyway. So yes, it's sort of half and half, but I do a retrospective plan to remind me what I've done. I do chapters, and then on a spreadsheet, and then just summarize very briefly what I've written in each chapter as I go along. And inevitably some of those turn around, and a lot of things happen in the edit for continuity and so on, because some people's the names change halfway through or whatever,
Right.
So various things
I've read it traditionally. It was only a short story in a women's magazine, but we started off, say, Wendy, and then halfway through the story, this was published, halfway through the story, she became Karen. I can't remember the exact names, but yes, published in a women's magazine.
I try and do search and replace, so that doesn't happen.
Yes. Well, I've come a cropper with that. I learned that because I changed Mark to something, or Jack to something else, and instead of wearing a jacket, he wore a market, and which of course market is a recognised word, so didn't pick it up. And what kind of marketing do you do, Jill, for your book?
When we talk about time management of social media, I find that very difficult, because I started. I mean, I'm terrible at social media. Someone who knew about such things said to me, "You must be on Instagram," and I still haven't totally figured that out. But I do Facebook, and I try and do it, but not as much as I should. And I seem to be spending a lot of time originally trying to be really conscientious, and I quite like making reels on Canva, like videos, taking photos and bits from the book and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I did a few of those, and so I was spending quite a lot of time forwarding those and doing things with them. And I can pretty well say I don't think it created any sales at all. I think what created sales was kind of word of mouth and sort of going to places and talking to people. And I could never pin down and say, oh, I know that worked about Facebook.
It's really tricky, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Oh, that's not quite true, because the only bit that did, I think, which created, I think, one sale was the Lundy Island group. I sent things to a lot of public groups, and the Lundy Island group are the most reactive group. There's about, I don't know how many, 19,000 people, and you do get half a dozen hearts and replies and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, nice.
And one sale. But I think there's something about people who like Lundy Island that they're a bit fanatical and they just keep looking at the group.
Right.
Apart from that, and not much of the book is on Lundy Island, only the end. But they just love anything like that. But apart from that, I don't think it really did anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe everyone's very successful. Are all the rest of you really successful at selling things through Facebook and Instagram and TikTok? Or whatever. I've been on TikTok. No, you don't think it works either. It's not just me.
No, it does work if you've got talent for it. If you've got a talent for it, and you can plow on with it, but then also you've got to interact, and it's got to be your thing.
It's so time.
You've got to really learn advertising. I'm sure there are lots of successful writers out there whose writing is rubbish, but their marketing is brilliant.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really excellent writers who sell nothing because they're just not very good at marketing, and it's sad.
Well, I
know someone who's a million seller with Joffy books, and she's literally averse to marketing. She will not go anywhere near a signing session. She won't put anything on social media. She just literally backs off everything. But she's not a million seller with one book. She's got about a dozen books.
That Joy?
No, it's no one you know at all. So they wouldn't come to a. They're not. I don't think they've ever been self-published. They wouldn't come to any festival that meant they were out there talking to people. They're very shy.
So Jane Austen fan fiction. Is that what it is?
No, it's crime fiction they write.
Oh, crime fiction. Sorry.
But so I mean, it doesn't seem to necessarily mean.
Well,
I don't know.
One thing I like, which I did years ago with a lady called Sarah Hardy, who sadly stopped doing it. Donna Morfitt did a couple for me, but I'm going to now look at other blog tour companies because Donna just doesn't have the time, and is to do blog tours. So I'm paying somebody else somewhere between £60 and £100, depending on how many bloggers are involved and how long it goes on for. And they spend their time sending my book out to the bloggers, and then the bloggers spend their time reading them and then putting reviews up on the day that they say they're going to, hopefully without spoilers. I have had to ask, I think it was Sarah, to ask her person not to take out their, oh, you'll never guess what happened, this happened. Or I guessed the ending, here's what it was. But blog tours I've found are really good, because also apart from drawing people to their website, or they've got the people there already, so my book is on there for the day, and then I get quotes that I can go on Canva and do videos and so on, saying so and so said that, and this one was a blogger's favourite book of the year.
You can book Instagram tours and TikTok tours and all sorts now as well.
But you have to pay for that, don't you?
Yeah, it's not a huge amount of money though. It's £1,600. £60 to £100 for.
Oh, this is 1,600.
No, 60 between £60 and £100
That's
for a whole tour, and that might be 3 or 4 bloggers every day for a week is the top end. Right. So it depends on how many you want done. I mean, I'd go top of the tree. I'd go, yeah, we'll have as many as you can get for as long as you like, because then you've got and I did it with O. Henry a couple of times, and it gets new people reading the book, and it did lead to, I got my money back and a bit more than that. But the thing also is that they are encouraged and asked to put the review on Amazon. And so it builds up your Amazon reviews.
So how do you find all these people to do a blog tour to? How do you find them?
If you go on Instagram or Facebook and just put in blog tour operators, or Google blog tour operators, then you'll see them, or go on Instagram. Once you get on Instagram, put in book tour, and then you'll see other. It's like Della Galton was a recent one. So if you look at her tour poster, which the tour operator either does or you can do yourself, and that will say when the bloggers are due to put their reviews up. So it's a bit like a book tour, but on blogs. And then it'll say who's organised it, and then you just contact them and say.
He's not a scammer, though. How do you know?
Well, if you know the author, if you know of the author,
Right.
and you can tell from how many they're doing. That
and on their website as well, they'll have all the current tours and the previous tours, so you can click on that and go and look about all the.
Because all the authors will share it on their own social media.
You might have to pay for some of them to send physical copies, which can cost you a little bit more, but yeah.
But generally it's a PDF or something. So I find, and again, I'm just paying a nominal amount for somebody else to do all the work. And that's the key for me, is that I'm then not contacting all these people and saying, who don't know me, and saying, would you do it? Whereas the tour operators know them already. And bloggers want more books.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is, apart from the paperbacks, and I have sent out paperbacks before, is that you just have to send the book to the tour operator, and then they'll send it out as and when you want to do a tour. And that's their I don't know whether it's their full-time job, but yeah, no.
Okay.
So it is a bit of a juggling day to day, isn't it? We have our own. It's interesting. We have our own different times of what works for us and what doesn't work for us. I can't guarantee I will ever join you at 11 p.m, Sarah. You never know. I maybe in Spain, when I don't have to get up a certain time and don't have the cats yowling.
I'm probably going to be writing anyway, so whether anyone joins me,
that's
not
true.
really a problem, because I'll be doing it anyway.
No, that's true. Well, thank you. Always lovely to see you, Sarah and Jill, and thank you, Jane, for your first one. Do come. I know you've sent me an email. I'll have a look. And Jill,
I said I looked through all the topics, and funnily enough,
yes,
the most resonated was the first one. So
right. No, that's great. Well, anytime there's space and you want to hop on, then feel free. It is very fluid. So we were expecting Sean, who sadly hasn't made it, but that in a way that's my bad, as the terrible saying so it goes, because I'll normally email out the day before, and I forgot, and I only emailed out this afternoon, so he may not have seen it.
It was bank holiday.
It was a bank. That's true. It was bank holiday yesterday. Yes. So anyway, thank you, ladies.
Well, have a nice holiday.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got Thursday, which at the moment is children and animals, which I may or may not keep as children and animals. No one's signed up to it yet, so I may change the topic, or I may just talk about children and animals on my own and see if anybody joins me. But that's no problem. And then a week and a bit off, so we'll reconvene the week after next. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.